All right, so in this video, which is part two of our government review, we're going to look at the judicial branch, juvenile justice, and local government. So remember, the judicial branch is their primary goal or role is they interpret state laws. So that means any bill that wants to become a law in Georgia, the judicial branch must look at it to make sure it doesn't go against the Constitution of Georgia. And then they administer justice. So that means anybody that commits a crime in Georgia, they're the ones who look at it and then deliver a punishment based on the crime. So remember, the judicial branch is operated by the Supreme Court judges or any judge, period. So remember, most judges in Georgia are elected to their position by the people. The only judges that are not elected, but they're appointed, are the juvenile judges, and that they're appointed by the Superior Court judges. So let's refresh our memory on civil and criminal law. So remember, civil law is any kind of dispute over money or some kind of compensation. So the plaintiff, that's the person who's suing the defendant. The defendant is the person who actually you're trying to get money from. So you bring a lawsuit against them for whatever reason, and your primary goal is to get compensation or settle a dispute for whatever the lawsuit is. And then the judge can rule in your favor or not, depending. Criminal law is not, it doesn't deal with money. Depending on now, some crime can deal with money, but criminal law is when you commit a crime. So rape, murder, theft, etc. So those crimes can be classified in two categories: a misdemeanor and a felony. So remember, a misdemeanor are your not so serious crimes. So like jaywalking, um, things like that. Those are crimes that are punishable with less than a year in jail. And then you have your felonies, which would be like your rape, your murder, your armed robbery, your hijacking. Those crimes are more serious, so therefore the punishment is more serious by up to 1 year in prison or more. Now, when you go through the adult criminal justice process, you have your pre-trial process and then your trial process. So remember, if you commit a crime, step one is instantly you get arrested. Then you're booked, so then you're mug shot, fingerprinted, all that. Then you make your initial appearance. So you go before a judge and you hear the charges brought against you, and then the judge can set your bail, can give you bail or not. Then you have the grand jury indictment. So a grand jury is called to see if the prosecutor has a case or if they can bring charges against you for whatever that you're accused of doing. Then you have arraignment, which is a formal reading of your charges. Now, before a case gets to trial, you can either take a plea bargain or you can take your chances at trial with a jury. So remember, a plea bargain is when you're saying that I'm guilty, and usually the prosecutor presents a deal. So they might say, well, you're about to go on trial for murder. If you take a plea bargain right now, I might give you 15 years instead of life. Now, if you don't want a plea bargain, then you go to trial. This is where these steps come in. So, of course, you get a select a jury. The lawyers made their opening statements. Then you have a whole trial that goes on. And then the biggest important thing is the jury verdict. So the jury says whether you're guilty or not guilty. And then your sentence for, if you're guilty, then your sentence for your crime. If you're not guilty, then you can go home. And then you have an appeal. So if you're not happy with the verdict, you can appeal it, which means you're trying to get your case relooked at or overturned. And it's up in the air whether or not you get that or not. Now, juveniles in certain cases are different than regular adult cases. So to be considered a juvenile, first of all, you must be 17 years or younger. Then your cases are categorized in two categories: delinquent behavior, unruly behavior. So delinquent behaviors are your serious crimes as if an adult committed it. So like theft, rape, murder, drug possession, etc. Unruly behavior would be like the equivalent to a misdemeanor, which would be like skipping school, driving without a license, drinking alcohol, running away from home, things like that. Now, as a juvenile, you have the right to have your parent or guardian contacted. You have the right to an attorney. You have the right not to be placed with adult offenders. And you have the right to not have your name or photograph made public. Now, remember, as a juvenile, you do not get a jury trial because you're a juvenile. Now, if you're charged as an adult, that's a different story. But if you're strictly charged as a juvenile for whatever crime you committed, the judge is your jury, and they give your verdict to you and punishment. Now, the steps in the juvenile justice process are a little different, or a lot of different, from a adult process. So, either way, you're taken to custody. And step two, you can either, depending on the crime, you could be released to your parent or detained in a juvenile detention center. Then step three or four, it depends on kind of what you decide. So if you want to admit your guilt, then you'll have an informal adjustment. Now, if you don't want to admit your guilt and you want to have a whole hearing, then you go to the adjudicatory hearing, which is where the judge will determine your guilt or innocence. And then either way, step five is a disposition hearing, which is where the judge hears the witnesses and pretty much gives you a punishment. And then local government, some little refreshers. So remember, for a city to become a city, the General Assembly must give that city a municipal charter. And that municipal charter, basically, the city outlines like what schools they're going to have, policing, etc. So remember, county government is operated by commissioners or board of commissioners. City government is operated by a mayor or mayor council. So remember, there are 159 counties in Georgia, which means more representation at the local level. And then you have your special purpose district, which are your roles that look at specific things. So, like, school district would be a special purpose district because they focus only on schools, so like Newton County School, DeKalb County School, etc. You have MARTA with a special purpose district, Hartsfield Jackson Airport, then the Georgia Port Authorities are some examples. Then, as we know, most of the way the government gets funding is through taxes. So, unlike the state government, where we get the state of Georgia gets money through personal income tax, the lottery, etc., local government gets money through different ways. The three biggest ways are ad valorem tax. So remember, ad valorem tax is a tax based on real property like cars and real estate. Sales tax, which is a tax based on anything you buy from a store like clothes, groceries, etc. You have your excise tax, which are a tax based on things like hotels, gas, etc. Then you have property taxes, which when you own a home, you pay property taxes on that home, and that money goes to the government and is spent on whatever the government sees fit.